reconvene with our city council meeting. The next item is item number 10, public hearings, 10.1. It's a fourth public hearing to receive input from the community regarding the redrawing of district boundaries and continue the presentation of draft district maps. And public hearing has to begin promptly at 6 p.m. City Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to reintroduce again our consultant, Jeff from NRD, who will go ahead and provide a PowerPoint presentation, and I think that's up. And then we'll go from there. NDC, sorry.
That's okay.
Wrong acronym.
NDC, we had some people call us NBC, like the TV station. It all works. So good evening, everyone. My name is Jeff Simonetti, and with NDC, National Demographics Corporation. And again, as always, we appreciate the opportunity to speak with you this evening. So tonight, what we'll be doing is going through just a quick presentation of the project timelines, some of our next steps and hearings. And then what we'll do is we'll review the new draft maps that we have either received or put together in response to some of the council requests. And then we will move forward on the discussion associated with the draft maps. As a reminder, and we've had this slide up a couple of times, but it's important to remember the process and why we're going through the redistricting process and what are the rules and laws that govern this process. The first is the federal laws, and particularly pertaining to the Federal Voting Rights Act, which has two main components. Districts have to have generally equal population, meaning that there can be a no greater than 10% deviation, and there can be no racial gerrymandering. In the middle, again, we have the California criteria for cities, which particularly pertains to Assembly Bill 849, or the Fair Maps Act. And they have 4 rank ordered criteria. First, districts have to be geographically contiguous. They have to have, where practicable, undivided neighborhoods and communities of interest, which are socio and economic geographic areas that should be kept together. They need to have easily identifiable boundaries, and they have to be compact. Once we get through those, we can also look at some potential other redistricting principles. So we can look at potential population growth. We can look at preserving the core of existing districts and minimizing the voters that are shifted to different election years. But again, those traditional redistricting principles come after we fulfill both the federal and state laws. Why are we going through the redistricting process? Again, when we talked about in the last slide here, when we talked about the Federal Voting Rights Act, and we had to have substantially equal population, we can have a no greater than 10% population deviation. And as you'll see here, with your existing districts using the 2020 census data, we have a 10.08% population deviation, so slightly over that allowable amount. The other thing that we're looking at too as well is that we have 3 existing districts, 2, 3, and 4, that have majority Latino citizen voting age population. So something to consider as well when we move forward on looking at the demographics of the new maps. Also here, we can see this visually in terms of where the Latino citizen voting age population is. And there's Latino citizen voting age population across all parts of the city, but in particularly parts of districts 1, 2, and 4 have large concentrations of Latino citizen voting age population. So since the last council meeting, we have had 4 new maps. So we made 3 as NDC and staff. We made 3 revised maps, taking into consideration the council direction that we had received. And those are labeled 110, 110A, and 111. And 1 new plan was submitted through the online mapping tool. And that is Plan 112 from the Indio Residents United. For the remainder of tonight's hearing, we'll be going through the overview of the draft maps. And if the council has consensus, we will be providing direction on the preferred map for introduction at the next meeting, which will be at February 16th. Remember that this has to be passed by an ordinance. So it requires two hearings or excuse me, two readings of an ordinance. So at February 16th will be the ordinance introduction, and then March 2nd will be the ordinance adoption hearing. And this must be completed by no later than April 17th of 2022 for the city to adopt and submit the map to the registrar of voters for in time for the November of 2022 elections. So with that, I'll stop there, see if there are any questions in particular about the presentation, and then we will go back into the draft maps.
Okay, well, this is a public hearing item. So what I will do now is I will open the public hearing and yeah, we'll open the public hearing and we can start with folks who are here from the community, and then we'll go online. Is that in the maps?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, we could do that.
Okay.
So we could close it.
Okay. Why don't-
We ask them to, yeah.
So, Jeff, maybe why don't you go through the maps first? And then we'll take public hearing comment,
After that.
and then we'll bring it back to the council.
No worries.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Not a problem. Okay. So do we have the map website up?
I think Vanessa's going to get it up.
Perfect.
Do you have what you need?
Yes. Okay. So just so that everybody can understand what we're looking at here. So for each one of the plans, you'll see that we have, if you toggle on or off that map, it'll show the districts in colors. For the blue dotted lines, that's showing an outline of where the existing districts are, so that you can see what changes with each one of the maps. And so for residents at home as well, if you go to the page and you wanted to see this, if you leave the existing district box checked, that will show you, again, the outline of the existing districts. So at last city council meeting, one of the directions that we received was particularly to look at District 4. And we wanted to add some of the area around Indio High School into District 4. And so we did two iterations of that map. And so this generally follows the existing districts. So here, District 5 pushes slightly up into District 4 in the northwest corner of the map of District 5. With a slight push into the area just south of the 10 freeway for District 3, but this is the area that particularly where we made changes to. So here we added the area around Indio High School into District 4 from District 5. Another iteration of this is Plan 110A, and this would, instead of putting that area into District 4, would keep all of this area as well in District 5. Otherwise, 110 and 110A, besides those changes, are identical. One of the other items that we received too was the current map, as we mentioned, has 3 districts with majority Latino citizen voting age population. And we had received a directive to say, okay, what would a map potentially look like if we added a 4th seat into a Latino citizen majority for citizen voting age population. So here we kept the communities of interest together of the downtown, and then added the area had District 4 go further south all the way to the southern border of the city, and then added an area just south of 51st and west of Monroe into District 4 to balance out the population. For your districts to the north, we added this area to the north side of in the current District 2, and then rounded out the population for District 2 to the east of the city. The final draft map that we'll look at this evening is Indio Plan 112. And again, this was from the Indio Residents United. It has some of the generally similar areas to the north in terms of District 1. The changes that this map made from Plan 109 is particularly in Districts 4 and 5. So here, just in this other plan, District 4 went for Plan 109 for the original plan that they had submitted, went down all the way to the south of the city in District 4. So now this map adds District 5, all in the southern part of the city. And then there is, all right, so I can zoom in here, you'll see there are some parts here as well that they added into District 4 around Indio High School. So those are the overview of the maps. And so at this point, we can, if you want to open up the public hearing, and then we can continue the discussion after that.
Well, the public hearing's open already, so we kept it open. No, that's fine. We kept it open. And Ms. Carrillo, do we have folks online who would like to speak?
Yes, we do. We have Mr. Huerta Silva.
We'll go ahead and start with Mr. Silva.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
A little louder. If you
Maybe a little louder, sir.
How about now? I feel like I'm yelling, but can I be heard?
Barely, if you could just speak up a little louder, we'll appreciate it.
How about now? Is this better?
That's perfect. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Good evening, Indio City Council. My name is Luis Huerta Silva, and I serve as redistricting organizer with California Common Cause. And I approached City Council in reference to the comment letter submitted on January 26th, jointly with CNC Education Fund, who too has concerns over recent comments made by City Council members at the January 19th hearing. Comments from Mayor Furman, Council members Ramos and Miller, and consultant Simonetti suggest that substantial changes that may impact political futures of incumbent office holders are categorized as gerrymandering or disenfranchisement. This is simply not the case. Rather, what these comments suggest is that avoiding change and keeping existing district boundaries largely intact are priorities for the City Council. Disenfranchisement is when voters have their votes denied or diluted by acts of law. Gerrymandering is when district lines are drawn to maximize the power of one group over another. And what is sometimes colloquially referred to as gerrymandering as well is incumbency protection actions that subvert a fair and public process that keep incumbents in power. A district map that draws sitting office holders out of their existing district does not represent gerrymandering or disenfranchisement of voters. Sitting office holders are drowned out of the districts all the time. Change is an inevitable part of redistricting. Moreover, district maps that draw sitting office holders out of the districts to which they originally elected do not end any office holder's term or deny any voter representation. A council member who was drawn out of their existing district will serve the remainder of his or her term in City Council. That is the law. The voters who elected that office holder continue to benefit from their representation on council through the end of the council member's term, which is what voters expected when they cast their vote. It is also a standard occurrence that after redistricting process, some numbers of voters live in a district that is not home to any existing incumbent, and some voters lived in a previously district scheduled to vote in 2022, but instead now live in a district scheduled to vote in 2024. Again, these sort of issues occur in a multitude of jurisdictions in every redistricting cycle at every level of government in every state of the nation. This does not represent gerrymandering or disenfranchisement, especially as it is a well-established practice that every voter remains represented on council by the council member that was elected to represent them until the completion of that member's term, even if that member is drawn into a different district in the middle of a term. Again, council members maintain their obligations to the district that put them in office for the duration of their term. We recommend that the city take seriously into consideration the implications of ignoring communities of interest testimony and prioritizing their incumbency. The Fair Maps Act did not exist in the 2017 districting process, but is now California law. More importantly, this is a once-in-a-decade opportunity for the city of Indio to move forward a truly democratic process where the stories and struggle from residents are front and center. City Council should do what's right and not waste this opportunity for equitable representation for the next decade. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Silva. We have any more online?
We have Nancy. Nancy, are you available?
Hello, can you? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, I apologize about that. Yes, my name is Nancy, and I urge the council to adopt map 109. I believe wholeheartedly that the map was made the community for the community, and that is all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Nancy. Do we have any more?
Maria?
Yes, hi. Good evening, Mayor Freeman and Furman, excuse me, and members of the council. My name is Maria Vargas, and I have been a lifelong resident of Coachella Valley. I have a little one with me. I currently reside in the city of Indio and have so for the past 10 years. At the previous meeting, which was held on January 19th, Councilman Glenn Miller stated, "I think 109 is too much change to our voters and disenfranchises a lot of them that have already voted." By definition, the word disenfranchise means to deprive someone of the right or privilege. Map 109 will not do this. If anything, it will do the exact opposite. By adopting a comprehensive map such as 109, which not only complies with the Federal Voting Rights Act, but it also follows the required criteria laid out in the Fair Maps Act, voters of community of interest would have the right to fair representation, in addition to having the ability to elect candidates of their choice. As for too much change, I believe change lends to progress when the implementation of such change truly addresses the needs of our community. So I urge you to adopt map 109. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am. Ms. Carrillo, do you have any more?
Jesse?
Hello,
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
how's it going? My name is Jesse. I'm a resident of Indio. So I myself have 4 children and my wife. We've been looking over the previous, mappings and stuff like that. And to me as an Indio resident, I believe map 109 is our best solution to move forward and progress as a community. I also urge you guys to adopt 109. That's all I have to say.
Right, thank you for your comments, Jesse. Ms. Carrillo?
We have one more, Karen.
Good evening.
Good evening, Karen. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening, council. My name is Karen. I'm a Miles Avenue homeowner in District 4. I'm calling in support of map 109 and now map 111 that was just presented to you by the consultant. Both maps reflect what the public is doesn't just change.
Want to stop the clock so that way she can.
You're breaking up.
You want to have her start over?
Ask her if you.
Karen, you're breaking up. Can you start over?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Should I start over? Did you hear me?
Yeah, we'll start you over. That's fine.
She's gonna start. the
Okay.
clock over.
Sure. Oh, good evening, Karen Borja, Miles Avenue resident, part of District 4, and I'm calling you in support of map 109 and of map 111, which was just shared with the consultants. Both maps have a very strong, they're trying to have a very strong conversation with you all about the needs of the residents of Indio. The residents of Indio need a network of parks that connects them. We need bike lanes, right? When you were all having a conversation about polo fields, that was my comment, right? 109 is talking to you all about the need to keep safety on our streets for drivers and cyclists and pedestrians. These maps are particularly important, 109 and 111, because they do incorporate the 10,000 person growth that has happened in the city in the last decade. Apart from that, both of these maps share a district that has a 6% Black vote. A vote against the Black community of the city. A very big vote against the Latino community of the city of Indio. Both map 109 and now map 111 both have 4 community of interest that are predominantly Voting Rights Act districts, which again allow you to continue to follow the law as it requires you to do so in the redistricting process. That's it for tonight. Appreciate the added changes that your consultants have made. And I hope that you listen to all the residents. Some of these folks that you're hearing from tonight, we went out and knocked on their doors. We canvassed in what you currently know as District 3, District 2. We were out there this weekend. We'll continue to have conversations with the neighbors so you can continue to hear that map 109 really is the map that is the best for the city of Indio at this point in time. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you for your comments, Karen.
Mitzi Escobar.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, council. My name is Mitzi Esquivel. I currently reside in District 4, and I am here to support the draft 109. Considering that this map is supported by our residents and community, I hope that you also support and adopt it. I strongly urge council to take the community's interest at hand. I would like to emphasize that this would be the best decision for our town. Our disenfranchised communities need the support. Thank you.
I do not see any more raised hands, Mayor.
Okay, no more raised hands. So what we'll do now, we'll move into folks who are present in the chamber. Our first speaker is Miss Annalisa Vargas.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor Furman, members of the council. My name is Annalisa Vargas, and I'm a resident of Desert Trace community. I'm going on 10 years of being an India resident, but a lifetime resident of the Coachella Valley. And as I stated at the previous redistricting hearing held on January 19th, I urge you to adopt map 109, also known as Indio Residents United Map. Marginalized communities need to have the opportunity to elect their candidates of choice. Map 109 uplifts the voice of ethnic minority groups, and that is why we are advocating for a map that empowers both the Latino and the Black community in the city of Indio. I found some of the comments made by the council rather disturbing and with the principles of redistricting. It seems that certain members of the council want to choose their voters instead of having the voters choose them. This undermines the redistricting process. The Fair Maps Act intends to eliminate the bias of gerrymandering, partisanship, and incumbency protection that are relics of the past and have no place in contemporary redistricting. Importantly, the Fair Maps Act mentions keeping communities and neighborhoods intact, but does not say anything about preserving incumbency or preserving existing districts in whole or in part. State law envisions that district lines will change as cities, their populations, their communities, and their neighborhoods change. Redistricting under the Fair Maps Act is explicitly not moored in the past. As a result, discouraging change is not the proper priority in your redistricting process. and it would be unlawful to elevate minimizing change to districts over the articulated redistricting criteria in state law. Furthermore, changes to be expected in Indio, given that the Fair Maps Act was not law when the current lines were drawn, and this was back in 2017. The line drawing rules are different today, and it would be reasonable therefore to expect the lines to be different as well. Comments made by Mayor Furman, Councilmember Miller, and Councilmember Ramos Amith suggest that avoiding change and keeping existing existing district boundaries largely intact is being prioritized in the redistricting process. This is not what the Fair Map Act mandates. If district lines drawn in accordance with the Fair Map Act line drawing criteria, including keeping communities of interest whole, are different from the existing lines, then difference is what the law requires. Long-lasting change is what we need in Indio. Fairness and inclusion is what we need in Indio. Equity is what we need in Indio. Our families and communities deserve this and nothing less. I urge you to adopt MAP 109. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Vargas. Our next speaker is Christian Rodriguez Ceja.
Thank you, Mayor. I believe one of my community members also allocated 3 minutes to me and is graciously giving up his time. So I'm going to use up that.
We're not allowed to do that. So you had your time, and if they like to speak, they can still speak.
That's fine. My name is Christian. I started all over again, please.
No, we'll start you at 3.
Thank you. My name is Christian Rodriguez. I'm a community resident of District 5, and I am part of Indio Organizing Power. I had a story that I wanted to tell you about some of the canvassing. I met a woman, Willow, and she was busy with her children and packing, and she said, "I don't have time to talk to you." She said, "I don't even live here anymore." And I said, "Why is that?" She says, "Because I can't afford to live in Indio, and we're moving to Banning." This experience is something that is happening across the board in our city. So why am I talking about housing during a redistricting process? Because housing burden is one of the key considerations of Indio Residents United map packet in your packet map 109. Housing burden, according to the Cal Enviro screen, is when people are paying more than 50% of their annual income in housing. District 3 currently, between Van Buren and 48, all the way up to Calhoun and 111, the Cal Enviro screen says that those communities are 90 to 100% housing burden. That community is currently sharing a district with Terra Lago. In that community, according to the Cal Enviro screen, 1 to 10% of people living in that community are sharing that same housing burden experience. That first community has more in common with people living between Jackson and 111 all the way to Monroe and Avenue 42. They also experience 90 to 100% housing burden. Map 109 gives these two communities a district of their own to elect someone from within their community to help them address the very serious housing issue that our city is facing. Terra Lago belongs with Talavera Homes, Shadow Hills, where housing burden is lower than 20% of for all those three communities. But this isn't just about housing. This is about life and death. And I wish I was exaggerating. Communities that live in current District 2 between Indio Boulevard, Monroe, and 111, according to a report published by the Desert Healthcare District last year, have a life expectancy of 75 to 80 years. They share a district and less than a mile away with neighbors that have a life expectancy of 80 to 90 years. We're talking about robbing people of life because we are not willing to elect people that will really represent them. Map 109 puts these communities in the same district. There are so many data-driven reasons why Map 109 is the best district map for our city, and we have been coming to you to tell you all about it. What I want to finish by saying is that the city embarked on a campaign on your behalf to ask Indio residents to get involved in the district process. Was it a lie that you wanted our input? Was it just tokenizing your communities? I urge you to adopt 109. If you don't, then you can make your next campaign slogan community engagement, but only when it's convenient. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Ceja. The next speaker, Adriana Rivera.
Hello, my name is Adriana. Good evening to everyone in attendance here in person and at home. I would like to start by saying I believe Indio is stronger together. And I'm grateful to all the folks, y'all, that have gotten the city, this beautiful city, to the point that it is. I want to start by saying that because it seemed that some folks took this map personal, and I don't think it should be at all. This is actually not about us as individuals, but about the future for the whole community. As a member of Indio Organizing Power, you can find us on Instagram. I have been involved with activism issues, and I'm interested in moving forward with a map that allows for fair representation over the next decade. Indio's districts are not borders of division, but should rather be looked at as keeping communities of interest intact. By upholding our communities, we ensure highest chance of success with transparent communication and cooperation among one another. I am in support of map 109 because it has easy identifiable boundaries. Monroe Avenue, Jackson Street, Calhoun Street, and Gulf Center Parkway run north to south. Dr. Carry-On Avenue 41, 42, 43, 46, 48, and Miles Avenue run east to west. Indio Boulevard, being adjacent to the train tracks, and the wash near Miles provide natural boundaries, although those are actually technically man-made. My biggest concern with the current map is that it gives 3 council members to the 92203 zip code. Well, the only person I know in my age group, she's a vet. She served our country, came back after service and bought a home in 92203, only to find everyone on her block are senior citizens, and she's raising a 2-year-old. So to her, it makes more sense to actually move back into 92201. What I'm trying to say is that although that area is still developing, north side of Indio, the majority of population is actually in 92201, whether we're documented or not. So, yep, just continue to keep an open mind for change and progressing us even more than we already have. Thank you. Have a good night.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Rivera, for your comments. The next speaker is Bonificio Espinosa, and I believe requires a Spanish translation.
We have one.
Do we need her to speak?
Yeah, because otherwise the council members won't understand the comments.
Yeah, we're gonna need you to speak into the microphone for the translation.
Español. Buenas noches, alcalde Fermo. I'm sorry.
Usted me ha hablado en español. Me mueve un poquitito para yo tener el micrófono.
Oh, okay.
I'm asking him to move so I can have the microphone.
Okay.
Okay, dígame.
Buenas noches,
Good night. I mean, good evening,
alcalde Fermo y miembro del consejo.
Mr. Furman, Mayor and member of the council.
Mi nombre es Bonifacio
My
Espinosa.
name is Bonifacio Espinosa,
Soy un residente activo de
and
la
I am
ciudad
an
de
active
Indio.
resident in the city of Indio.
Can you
He
let
vivido
him?
aquí
I have
durante
lived
20
here
años.
for 20 years.
Vivo en el distrito 2,
I live on District 2,
en la calle Dillon y la calle
on
Jackson,
Dillon and Jackson,
cerca del DMV.
close to the DMV.
Le insisto,
I insist
adopte el mapa 109
that you adopt map 109
como conocido
as is known
como mapa de residentes de Indio Unidos.
as a map for the citizens of Indio Unified.
Este mapa
This map
honra a las comunidades de
Hon-
interés,
honors the communities of interest,
COI,
COI.
mantiene los vecindarios y
It
las
keeps
comunidades
the neighborhoods as well as the homes and people
completos,
as complete communities.
mantiene los centros
It also
económicos
keeps the centers
cerca de las
cohesive
familias
and near the families
residenciales
and the residents.
y empodera
And then it empowers and enhances our ways to,
la comunidad afroamericana.
for the Afro-American community.
Este mapa
This map
cumple totalmente
complies completely
con la Ley de Derechos Electorales,
with the law for the
BRA.
votation, BRI law.
Incluye 4
It
distritos,
includes 4 districts,
BRI,
BIR,
con más del
with
50%,
more than 50%.
CBAP
CVAP
latino.
is Latin.
Este mapa fue diseñado,
This map was designed
considerado
and considered
el plan general del
the
plan
general plan of the plot
específico del
Specific
centro de elementos de la vivienda.
to the center for housing elements.
Y la pantalla,
And the screen,
Calviro y la,
Calviro,
y la Proposición 68.
and the, okay,
Proposición 68.
and the procession 68.
En mi comunidad,
In my community,
las calles están muy sucias,
the streets are very dirty.
no se ha barrido por
No one has swept them for
desde hace varios meses
since about a few months ago.
y queda un barrido que es un servicio básico.
That is a basic,
No es justo
it's not fair
que las áreas nuevas de
that the
Indio
new areas of Indio
tengan muchos más recursos y
have so
servicios,
many more resources and services,
mientras nuestras vecindades,
while our neighborhoods,
cuando llueve se tapa el drenaje
when it rains, the drainage gets clogged.
de tanta basura
And because of all the trash and debris,
y el agua se queda estancada.
and the water remains stagnant.
Muchas gracias a todos.
Thanks to everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Espinosa, for your comments.
Muchas gracias.
Mayor Furman, could we have somebody follow up with the street sweeping on that area?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Sandra Tolinto. I believe that she also needs a Spanish translation.
Hola, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Sandra
Good
Polento.
evening. My name is Sandra Polanco.
Polento.
Polanco.
He sido residente de la ciudad de Indio
I have been a resident of the city of Indio
por los últimos 8
for
años.
the last 8 years.
Solo quisiera mencionar
I would only like to mention
que el propósito de la
that the purpose
redistribución
of the redistribution
no es acerca de quién
is
pueda
not
ser
about
reelecto
who can be reelected,
o qué distrito
or
puedan o no representar,
who or what district may they be able to represent or not represent.
Esto es acerca del futuro de Indio
This has to be with the future of India
por los próximos 10 años.
for the next 10 years.
Eso es acerca de
And
nuestras
this is
comunidades de
also
interés,
about our communities of interest
las necesidades de cada familia
and
en
the
Indio,
needs of each and every family in India,
de las diferencias que
and
hay
about the differences that we have
hoy existen entre
today and
distritos.
that exist today between districts.
Diferencias notables como la calidad de
Notable
vida
differences like the quality of life
y educación.
and education.
Es por eso que apoyo
And
y
this
les pido
is
que
why
adopten
I support and I ask you that you support
el mapa de residentes de Indio Unidos
the
109
map for resident from India unified
por tres simples
109.
razones.
for 3 simple reasons.
Primera,
First,
este mapa cumple
this
totalmente con las
map
leyes
is totally in conformity with the law
de derechos electorales.
for the votation rights.
Dos,
Number 2
es el mapa que Indio
is the
necesita.
map that India needs.
Número 3,
Number 3,
mantienen su trabajo
they keep their jobs
por X cantidad
for
de
X
tiempo.
number of time.
Y lo más
And the
importante,
most important
estás
thing
respondiendo a la
is
voluntad
that
de la gente
you are answering to the plight that the will of the people ask for.
y por último,
And finally,
estás haciendo tu trabajo
you are doing your job
y dejando India atrás
and
mejor
leaving Indio behind.
a adoptar el mapa 109.
The
Gracias.
best would be to adopt 909. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Talento.
Señora Paleto, gracias.
Our next speaker is Martin Gill.
Good evening. My name is Martin Gill. I'm here to support map 109 because I believe it better represents our communities. Please take note that the only map that has public support is map 109. That is all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gill. Do we have any more online yet?
We do. We have Eric.
Hi, evening. My name is Eric Lemus. I live in District 5. I am tuning in and hearing all the wonderful organizing that's been done around support for our collected map done by the residents. I'm also calling to support the same map. Additionally, above everything that's been said, which I won't repeat, and all the great points that were brought to this map, I just want to bring attention as a resident of Indio and of being an active member of the community, how much power and love went behind organizing this. It's has to be truly noted that the residents can come together, and then there could be a cohabitance of the organizing to really take full extent of power by realizing what the residents have all come together to put together, which is not just in an instance, just this map, but the things that can be accomplished collectively together in the community with organizing. So I just want to take note, and as mentioned before, this is the only map that is optimum for the community by the community. That is all. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any more online?
Not at this time, Mayor.
All right, then we'll proceed to the folks who are in the chamber. Vanessa Becerra.
Hi, good evening, Mayor Furman and City Council. I'm Vanessa Becerra, and I am a lifelong resident of Indio. I am here to voice my continued support for map 109 for many of the reasons that the community has already stated. One of my own reasons is that it keeps my community of interest intact, like many others, right? It gives us natural corridors with the city parks and also access to economic developments, as well as keeping housing burden communities together and giving them representation for a livable space to live in, right? Another reason I would like y'all to support map 109 is just because of the community support and the voices that you're hearing. This is the only map that I'm really actually hearing that has any other reason besides population balance. So it also, at the last meeting, we heard some of the council members talk about natural corridor or natural lines, right? So it gives us some natural barriers that we've heard. So we have your support on those with that map. Some other reasons I like to stand up here and tell you is that it really just amplifies the support that we need, right? So I would really, really like for you all, City Council, to take into consideration map 109. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker will be Vanessa Rivera.
All right. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and members of the council. I first will be starting off. Oh, my name is Vanessa. I'll be first starting off with a small part of Karen's public comment, who spoke earlier, which I think you heard most of it, but a small part was cut out due to the connection. So map 109 and map 111 have a district with 6% Black voting population, protecting that community of interest behind the police station. And these maps also have 4 Latino majority districts, protecting those neighbors with the Voting Rights Act. Okay. End quote. So my comments are mainly a response to some things that happened at the last public hearing. Some of it has been said, but I believe it is worth reiterating. First, it has been pointed out that an acceptable map is one that can be easily described to residents more than they are currently, and map 109 does that. Other maps presented didn't do so as clearly, I believe, and they were not scrutinized nearly as much. I know that a lot of work and research went into map 109, the Indio Residents United map, its second version, and with 111, I'm sure a lot of these had a lot of work into it, especially considering demographics and communities of interest. And I think that should be a bigger part of the discussion because it doesn't feel like it is. Lastly, the organizations Common Cause and Communities for a New California sent an email to the council regarding redistricting and some comments made at the last public hearing. And so I'll just be reading some excerpts for you and for the public listening. We must address council's repeated assertion that districts that create substantial change and may impact the political futures of incumbent office holders is gerrymandering or disenfranchisement. This is simply not the case. Disenfranchisement is when voters have their votes denied or their votes diluted by acts of law. Partisan gerrymandering is when district lines are drawn to maximize the power of a political party and or minimize the power of another political party. Racial gerrymandering is when district lines are drawn to maximize the power of one race of people and or minimize the power of another race. Incumbency protection actions that subvert a fair and public process to keep incumbents in power are sometimes colloquially referred to as gerrymandering as well. I hope you read that letter. I don't have time to read all of it, but it points out some very clear points in favor of map 109. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am. Next speaker is Jonathan Basur.
Good evening, Mayor Fairman and members of the council. My name is Jonathan Basur. I'm an Indio resident organizer here in the city of Indio. I'm resident for over 25 years. A couple of things just to lay out in terms of my support of map 109. We have a couple of new parameters, and one of which being the Fair Maps Act, which wasn't around in the last districting process. So it is a new factor to take into account. The other is that this doesn't feel like a drastic change on any account, seeing as each of the districts only had one election with these new districts. So only once have the voters seen these districts previously in any election. 2 of our council members up here are benefits of that. So my general support in map 109 was reaffirmed in our canvassing efforts this past weekend. I myself canvassed over 4 neighborhoods in 2 days, and I had 0 people kind of voice any negativity about 109. I had multiple people voice support of it. I had multiple people question who would go against it logically. I had a lot of overwhelming belief that too much weight was probably given to the current incumbency and re-election of our leaders. But overall, families and people who felt disconnected from their economic interests supported 109 drastically and verbally. And we're very much surprised at the aspect of this not even being considered and thrown out so quickly last time. I was very concerned about the talk of disenfranchisement last time, specifically being that Palm Springs had this situation very much recently. And in that case, the candidate just gave up a year of power versus actually asking the voters to give up 2 years of an election. So it seems that we've already addressed that issue in terms of how these districts can shape out and shape out. So another reason I really support 109 is that this is the best representation in redistricting. I mean, we think we get all the data, we've given everything we can, and we've gone out to the community to reaffirm what we found. And I believe we're continue to do that because the community is on our side on this one. And I don't want to reiterate everything else everyone's saying. It's just, this seems like the easiest map to be on top of. Even the consultant here was able to take our changes and to integrate them into the maps that they have in map 111. So I really urge the council to take consideration that this is the only map with public support. This complies complete with the Fair Maps Act. This is not a drastic change, and that we can do this without it feeling like so much of a drastic change. And I really hope that 109 or 111 is considered very strongly in this round, and that is put up for adoption at the next round. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Becerra. Ms. Becerra, do you have anyone else on the line?
Not at this time, Mayor.
Okay, we have one last speaker in the chamber, Mr. Zamudio, Mike Zamudio.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, audience. I'm not in favor of map 109 nor 111. Leave my district alone. We have very good representation. There was a comment made about it's the only map the community wants. It is not the only map. Leave my district alone. It kind of seems like gerrymandering to me. Going to split up my district, and I live in North Indio, the true North Indio. So you split up my district and you have all of the I-10 in district, what is it, 1 and 2? It's a gated community. Leave my district alone. I think that we've had many improvements with our representation there in our district. We have new streets, new sidewalks. We have a sports park coming soon. We have LED lights coming soon. There's so many things that our district, we have well support. So just leave my district alone. Do not make that mistake. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments, Mr. Zamudio. Do we have any more on the line?
No, Mayor.
Okay. We'll leave the public comment open and bring up the consultant.
Great. Thanks, Jeff. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Oh, terrific. Jeff, can you address whether maps 109 and 112 present any concerns relative to the Fair Maps Act?
Sure. So one of the particular areas that we wanted to point out in association with, and it's a common feature of both 109 and 112, is particularly the area of District 1. And there's as you'll see, 109 and 112 have the same District 1, so the red district. There's two challenges associated with this. First, we talk about compactness. And when we say compact, that means you don't bypass one group of people to get to a more distant group of people. And so here, I mean, you can see that, we have the main concentration of citizens would be in the area that's now the green district, yet we're going here along the northern part of the city to capture from the far west to the far east of the city. The second thing is, and if we talk about, and this was an important one, when we had the slide up pertaining to citizen voting age population. In districts 1, or in the current District 1, we have in this area, there's low Latino citizen voting age population. In this area, there's low Latino citizen voting age population. But in this part where we currently have the connection between those two, there's a couple of neighborhoods in there that have between 65 and 75% Latino citizen voting age population. So by taking that out of their current district, you're diluting that citizen voting age population within that district. So those are some of the concerns that we would have. And again, they both plans 109 and 112 follow that same rationale in terms of District 1. In terms of Plan 112, one of the other things that we noticed too was that this area here between District 4 and I believe that is 3, there's some areas that are essentially non-contiguous. This area that kind of wraps around, so I can zoom in here, it's Avenue 46. Since this is just kind of capturing at a point, there's some potential contiguity issues there. And again, this part of District 4 is not necessarily compact as well. So those are just a couple of the concerns that we would highlight about both plans 109 and 112, but particularly the district in the north there and concerns about potentially diluting this area of Latino citizen voting age population.
Thanks. And then in terms of the other maps that were presented, I know today was 110A, and the council at the last meeting seemed to reach a consensus to bring back some additional maps, certainly the ones that weren't population balanced or thrown out, but for example, 101, 104, 105, 108, and are relative to the Fair Maps Act, are those maps in compliance with the Fair Maps Act?
So 101 is yes. There's no issues again with compactness there. 104, so we can pull that up. Again, no major concerns there. And it was 108 you mentioned?
105, 108.
105 again, generally follows the same path as 104 did. And then 108. Again, keeps District 5 again, mostly to the southern end of the city. So these have no issues in terms of compactness or Voting Rights Act issues.
And then we went over 110A, which was a variation of 110, which I think refined that a bit. 110A made the refinements on 110. So your opinion on 110A? And 110A.
Yeah. So here again, what the ask was to put the area around Indio High School either into District 4, and so that was again from the request of the council. And then for 110A, we just kept the entire area around Indio High School within District 5. So again, it's a policy choice whether you want that area around around Indio High School, either in District 4 or District 5, just presenting those both ways there.
Okay. And then in terms of 111, I think that was an attempt to try to see what can be not worked around with 109 and 112. However, it looks like that also has some of the same issues that you discussed with 109 and 112 in terms of the Area 1 and the shift there.
Yeah, so this has less issues with compactness than either 109 or 112 does. But again, we were just showing this by way of example to say, okay, if you could get four Latinos CVAP districts in terms of majority, what might that look like?
Yeah.
Again, the shortcoming there is issues of compactness, number one, and number two, this map dilutes that citizen voting age population less.
Right.
But again, just showing that if you keep the districts lines, particularly the District 1 there along, the northern corridor, you have issues of compactness, number one, and number two, again, potentially diluting this area in terms of the Latino neighborhood in the northern part of the city.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then, Mr. Mayor, I think if the council has any questions, not so much discussion, but questions for the consultant, that might be a good idea now. And then we can close the public hearing.
Sure. Do we have questions for the consultant? No? Councilman Ramid, any questions for the consultant?
I don't have questions, but I do have closing comments. So I'm not sure if you want me to make them now.
Okay, we'll close the public hearing before we do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll go ahead and close the public
Thanks, Jeff.
hearing.
Thank you.
And we'll open it up for council. If council has comments or concerns. And actually, before we do that, I think, it's obvious that there's a lot of community engagement, and we appreciate that as the mayor and the council. And that's something that we asked for. Of course, we want to be operating within law and obey those laws. So thank you for reiterating that point. And also, we hired our consultant to aid us in this process and also alongside the community. So we hear you, and I'm looking forward to comments from the council and see how we can move forward. The goal tonight is to come to a consensus. We could look at maybe one map or two maps to move forward and give our staff some direction to bring us a map for a resolution. So I'll open it up to council.
And Mayor, if I may, we're trying to get, again, consensus on a potential one or two maps like you were mentioning. But again, if there are edits to a particular map, if you say, I want to make this change to this map, we can still do that and have time in between now and the next public hearing to be able to do that.
Thank you. Councilman Miller.
I appreciate I appreciate the input from the community. I appreciate your work on this, on the maps that we have here. Quite a bit to chew on. I do like the idea of the continuity and how you were put together by the community as a whole. So I appreciate all your work and thank you for presenting these to us.
Mayor Pro Tem.
If I had to have preference on a map, I say 108 and 110A.
Again, thank you for your words, Mayor. I think they resonate with everyone. There's been a tremendous effort here to put together the best possible map that represents our community and our entire community. I think my top two are also going to be 108 and 110A, but I'm leaning toward 108 because I like particularly the way District 4 is set up. It encompasses all of that Indale High School area. And I actually like it much better than it's currently, than the district that it's currently set up as. So, 108 or 110A, but my preference is going to be 108.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Well,
we're Councilman Remy.
Thank you, Mayor. My preference, of course, is 108. Second would be 110. And after that, I'd consider another if staff felt that it were comparable. I want to make comments. At the end of the day, it really doesn't matter what district each of us falls into because we represent the city of Indio. So whether I'm in District 5 or District 4 is irrelevant to me. But I want the public to understand, we represent the 90,000 residents of the city of Indio. No one individual and no one group can come to the city council and state that they represent the citizens of Indio. At the end of the day, we as their representatives are the collective voice of the 90,000 residents. And we make the decisions based on the best interest of the 90,000 residents. So I wanted to make sure that that was made clear because there were several comments tonight that we represent the citizens, we represent the residents. You know, this is the voice of the residents. And unless you have 45,001 people behind you, then no, you don't. We have 90,000 residents that we need to think about. And currently, we have 4 Latino representing districts. We have the 3 that are predominantly Latino in demographics, and we have my district, which is not predominantly Latino in demographic, but they have proven by electing a Latina that they support the Latino constituency. So I don't know how we can ask for anything better other than to make sure that we do balance out the districts based on the last census. And in my opinion, that's Plan 108 with 110 being secondary. And those are the comments I wanted to make. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Mead. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I think for me, I'm really looking at one of the most important parts in this process is keeping communities of interest together, right? And when we're looking at the data, what the data shows us is that in central Indio is where we have a lot of that population, as was mentioned earlier, that we have a high population of people who are living in housing burdened areas, more low income families. There's higher levels of pollution in those areas because of the industrial operations. There's lower life expectancy because of the lifestyle that's lived in those areas. And as the map currently stands, that area in the northern part of Indio is split up with higher income areas. So we have 3 districts that are split up between areas with, you know, very high housing burden, lower life expectancies, and environmental disparities, lower income, and those are getting split up with the higher income areas. So we are splitting up that power of that community. And so when they're going to the voting booth, they're voting with communities that don't reflect the same needs. And I think that's what I'm hearing from our community. And when after last meeting, I went and looked at that data from the Desert Healthcare District that looks at the health among those communities, data from our housing burden populations. And like we heard from one of our speakers, we're pairing up communities that have 90 to 100% housing burden neighborhoods with areas that have 10 to 20% housing burden areas. So these communities are not going to vote. They don't have the same needs. And so when they're electing representatives, they're going to be in contrast a lot. And so I think it makes more sense to keep those 2 communities that have the higher housing burden areas together. I think that's what we mean by communities of interest. Communities that are going to have the higher, or that are going to have the same needs from their representatives. And so for that reason, I do support the community's map 109. And my second choice would be map 111, which takes into consideration those needs as well, provides a little bit of difference continuity, but I think the continuity is still there in map 109 because we see the most northern part of Indio is District 1, right? And when we look at the Latino population that we're seeing as being diluted in that place, we're seeing the same thing in our current map. And I think it's even worse in our current map. And so those are my comments. Thank you.
But when you talk about, Mayor Pro Tem Ortiz, when you talk about housing burdened and environmental issues, you're talking about things that our state legislature have control over, not a city council. So your arguments are true. I agree with you.
Yeah.
But they're misplaced in that this is not where those districts are decided. Those
No.
districts are decided at the state level, and those conversations have been ongoing. So if that's the concern, then the constituency who's speaking up needs to speak up at those hearings, which have been going on since November, December. I've been a part of those. But housing burden and environmental issues are not a city function. They're a state legislature function. So we need to understand and help our constituency understand and where to focus their energies. Those arguments are at the state level.
You know, these people here are involved at every level of government, and I've seen them involved in other places of government. So I think to undermine their intelligence in government is not the right place for us now. And
we're not undermining them. We're just telling them that their efforts are misplaced. We have no control over those things.
Well, I think the goal here is to find an equitable map that falls under our state law, our federal law, and the Voting Rights Act. And we looked at a dozen maps. We made revisions. We listened to the community. We worked with a consultant. And being a resident of the city of Indio for 42 years, born at JFK Hospital, I could tell you that there have been some disparities. There have been some disenfranchisement in our community over the years, but we've made progress. I'm the first African-American mayor of the city of Indio. That shows some progress. And I think looking at these maps, of course, we have to make changes. I worked on the census. I know the numbers. I volunteered on the census. But I think some of these maps that some of our organizations are bringing to us present some issues that we couldn't legally pass. We're bypassing on 109, the whole northern part, large Hispanic demographic in that area. With that being said, some of the other maps, what the changes, I do favor. Change is good. Change is good, but change may not always work in your favor or to your liking. And we have to also understand that as well. And the comment was made that we represent approximately 93,000 people in our city. And we do. We all represent them, all council members. As a mayor, I represent every single person in this city, whether it's a homeless individual, unsheltered, somebody who makes $200,000 a year, or somebody who's incarcerated. We represent all of them. So with that being said, we have to wrap our arms around this, come to a consensus of one or two maps that our council can move forward with and present a resolution from our staff. So looking at the maps myself, I'm in favor of map 110A and also 108. So I don't know if we need to continue the conversation on the maps or what are the next steps?
I think the city manager was going to say something, or do you want me to?
Well, and you might echo it. It appears that four of you mentioned 108 or 110 or 110A. Mayor Pro Tem had an opposing view, but it might be worthy of asking the Mayor Pro Tem if it had to be 110 or 108. Do you have a preference between the two of those? That might be helpful as we try to seek consensus. Would one be your preference if those had to be the only choices presented to you?
It's tough because I see the same issue that we have currently in both of those areas. In both of those maps show the same issue that we're talking about. And just another comment is, I know, legally these might all be acceptable, but we're not here just to comply and just to be in compliance. We're looking for the best representation for our residents. And that's why I'm supporting map 109 and 111.
So
Well, so the next steps, what we have to be able to do is by a date certain is have a map adopted. And so if tonight between 108 and 110A or one, it seems like those are the ones that sought the most consensus. If there's a preferable map between the two of them and the council is ready to move forward on that map, then what would be appropriate is an motion to essentially state that that you would prefer one map, by number, and request staff to bring back an ordinance with that map. If you have further questions or discussion, then we can do that. But we're running out of time in terms of the scheduling. So that, Mr. Mayor and the council,
yeah,
hopefully that helps.
I would accept the motion.
You would, I guess I'll make a motion suggesting or stating that map 108 that would be my motion for plan 108 or map 108, and would request staff to bring back an ordinance for map 108.
I'll second that.
Take a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Holmes,
Aye.
Councilmember Miller,
Aye.
Councilmember Ramos Hamid,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ortiz,
No.
Mayor Furman.
Aye. The motion passes 4-1.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Jeff.